10. A perfect 10. Bo Derek or our 10th Essential show? Which one? Bo Derek or our 10th Essentials?
What era of Bo Derek? Are we talking about late
Now,
70s?
now.
Oh, she's still beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our show's better.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. She's now a 9.5. We're a 10.
Yeah. And I think that you're really happy that this is the end of the Essentials road.
Yeah. It started to give me a wee pinch of anxiety.
It looms.
It looms.
Yeah. First off, it seems like we've done 30 episodes of Essential shows.
Yeah.
We've only done 9.
10 now.
Well, we haven't done it yet.
Well,
talk to me after
we're
the show.
in the process.
It's been a lot of fun. And I was looking through my list, and there are both of our lists, although I don't have all of your selections in my notes.
Yeah.
But man, there's some good music there. There's
some great music. And I mean, if you want to start a collection, those 200 albums, it's a good way to start.
Yeah. And we're starting to get response from people.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. On social media about, the show, ideas for shows and different things. So it's great. I mean, it's really coming along. And the one thing about these Essential shows that separates them from the rest of them is it seems like more people listen to the Essential shows.
Yeah. And I get it. They want to see, hey, what's their opinion of what we should listen to?
Yeah. And so far, nobody's had any knockdown, drag out arguments about this record or that record. So it's been a lot of fun, but I'm looking forward to moving on to different subjects and different things.
Yeah, because and I mean, the anxiety comes with also you got to narrow the list.
Yeah.
And who gets to stay on the island and who gets to leave?
Right. I didn't have trouble every time I had to select 10, but today and last night, as I was mentioning before we started, it was tough because not only, I'm looking at the rest of the list, comparing what I've chosen, what I've left out, what I haven't chosen, and this is it. This is the last one. Does it change? Is it organic? Do we do one every 5 years like Rolling Stone?
Well, I think if we did it next year, I'd probably kick some people off the island.
Yeah. Because that's the one thing about all of this is that it is extremely dependent on what's going on in your life, what you've been listening to, new things that you've been introduced to. So a list like this kind of begs to be updated.
Yeah, and I say people, they're albums. They're not they're just albums.
Well, I mean, if you were going on a desert island, you're only taking 10. So you're going to have to take 10%.
You got to make a
list.
choice, yeah. So and maybe that's the thing that is anxiety-inducing, the choice.
Yeah.
Like choices are not always good.
So this last batch, how much thought have you put into it?
Not a bunch. I did initially, but then getting everything together, I knew like 5 that I wanted to include that I'd already pre-listed.
Yeah.
And then the other 5 were like,
I went to my records last night to start, and part of it was, okay, I'll just grab the 10 and I won't have to do it in the morning. Well, looking through my records led to me not reorganizing, but putting shit up that's been sitting on the floor or hasn't been filed yet. So I spent probably an hour and 15 minutes putting records up. And then I start to notice, oh, that's out of alphabetical order. Then I thought of you.
Yeah.
Having reorganized and not knowing where anything is. So it must be a lot of fun for you to try to find stuff.
When I say I don't know where anything is, I could be confusing what I have on vinyl
and CD.
Yeah. And it's like, just because I spend a lot more time with the vinyl than I do with CDs now.
Yeah.
It just may have slipped my mind. Oh, I've got that on CD, but not on vinyl.
Yeah.
And it gets confusing.
So what's the first record you love?
Let's Burn Down the House.
Okay.
Talking Heads, Speaking in Tongues.
This is a great record. They're one of those bands that I think, everything that they did was essential.
Yeah. There's some. What I like about this record is it kind of kicked off their next era in music.
Iteration.
Yeah. Because they'd gone from being a very underground, independent band
Four-piece.
Yeah. To being. Now they were getting played on the radio. This was a big change for them.
Yeah. I'm going to assume this is an original that you've had since
Yes.
it came out.
This was probably, I would not be surprised if it's a music club.
Oh, really?
Because I was getting a lot of stuff through Columbia House at the time.
Yeah. One of my essentials that I'll talk about later is a music club, and it kind of surprised me when I realized that today. So
Really?
isn't it funny? Sometimes you look for those and look for that, and other times it's there and you just don't even notice it.
I would have never thought those records would suddenly become quasi sought after.
Yeah, yeah,
Because, I mean, it was like one of those things, oh, it's from the music club.
yeah.
I mean, when I was buying records in the 80s, when I first started buying a lot of records, I wasn't looking, nobody that I know of was looking for pressings.
Nobody was looking for collectability.
No, you're just buying the record because now I've got the music.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't care if it came from Portugal, if it was a bootleg or what.
That is interesting because there is a shift in attitude. Like now, it's not just about the records that people want. A lot of people are driven by the records that are worth the most amount of money or the pressings that are the most rare. And back then, was it like that in the...
Not at all.
Yeah.
Because stores would stock whatever they could get their hands on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that from a society, we're getting real deep here, but like sociologically, I think we've, in the last maybe 15, 20 years, we've become more of a collector society. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Limited edition is on everything from cornflakes to, record pressings and stuff. So
I'm amused at the cornflakes.
it's true. You go to the fucking grocery store and it's like limited edition macaroni and cheese. It isn't all food limited edition.
Yeah.
I mean, it lasts about, 8 to 12 hours. So let's talk about speaking in tongues.
Speaking in tongues.
Oh, shit. It's almost like we've done 10 episodes in a row and now we're slap happy.
And I love the artwork on this. It's like a kind of a pastel record.
It's what we've talked about with
Yeah.
probably 5 or 6 other album covers from the 80s.
Yeah.
The pastel colored or a black and white photo that's painted over.
And the back kind of is a different theme on the same idea.
Yeah.
So
I look at that and I just think of Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah. Bink.
I need my red pie.
So side A, burning down the house, making flippy flop, girlfriend is better, slippery people, I get wild gravity. Side B kicks off with swamp, moon rocks, pull the roots, this must be the place. And what they've done, instead of numbering the tracks, there's like square, there's like little icons, square, star, moon, triangle, heart.
I bet at this point David Byrne ate a lot of cereal at night too.
Yeah, David was having cereal, so that was the go-to.
It's a great record, but like I said, as I get older, I appreciate Talking Heads more and more. I mean, they are just...
Yeah.
They were so far ahead of their time, and still, I mean, with the American Utopia show we saw a few years ago,
which was really fun.
He's just always, maybe not reinventing himself, but going to places in music that he's never been to before. And even if it's not always a success, I really respect somebody who does that.
Yeah, and this came out in June of '83. The tour was documented with Jonathan Demme's Stop Making Sense film.
That's a great.
Which it's funny how legendary filmmakers start off with these concert films.
Yeah, I mean Scorsese.
Yeah,
there've been a lot of them.
Yeah,
Martin's one of the biggest ones. I mean, he's done multiple.
Yeah, he's done multiples, but I mean, the last waltz is legendary.
Yeah.
One thing I love about this is the different iterations of the lonely chair.
Is that where you got your obsession
No.
with lonely chairs?
I just noticed it.
I've never noticed that. I didn't even look at those pictures.
Yeah, they're like little Polaroids in each corner of a chair. It's on its side.
That's funny.
It's never right side up. Why would it be?
Yeah. Well, my first one has to do with colors. Purple by Stone Temple Pilots. This is their second record. It was released June 7, 1994. I worked at a record store at this point. We got this as a promo. And this is a theme running through a lot of the records that I've come to love. We just started playing it in store. And I think Interstate Love Song might have been the first single off of this. No, wait a minute. Vaseline was, then Interstate Love Song. But, man, it drilled it into my head and everyone's head who came into the store. And this thing, I think it's almost sold 10 million copies.
Yeah, those first three Stone Temple Pilot albums are just like the greatest hits.
Yeah. I mean, they're a machine. I absolutely adore this record. This is absolutely an essential. And I only got it like, I don't know, maybe less than a month ago.
Yeah.
Or it would have been on the list earlier. In case you're just tuning in, we don't talk about records that we don't actually have the copies of. So it could be Michael Jackson Thriller, which is essential. But if we don't have it on vinyl, we're not going to talk about it on this show. Anyway, I love the artwork. It's this, I don't know. It's probably Japanese art. I've heard that this symbol means purple, I think, in Japanese. I guess I could look into that. But when you look at the back, it's just a cake.
12 gracious melodies.
12 gracious melodies. And that's the last song on the record. It's kind of a hidden song. It ends up sounding kind of like a lounge singer. Weiland isn't around anymore, and it's a shame that he, lost his battle. But there's so much good music from him for us to enjoy, and this is absolutely an essential. We've got a Square Hype sticker that's purple, which is appropriate. There's about 3 of their albums that I think could absolutely be essential, but this one means the most to me. And it's another case of those bands in that era. I barely ever listened to the first record, and I love the second one with Pearl Jam and
Really?
Soundgarden and Stone Temple Pilots, and I could go on and on. But there we go.
I was actually thinking about, do I want to put another STP album on my essential?
I did it for you.
Thank you.
You got it.
So next, we're going to go in the Wayback Machine.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Santana. First album.
Great record.
I love the lion with the face.
Yeah, there's a lot of hidden.
There's a lot of faces in there.
Since Supernatural, he's kind of become known as something kind of different than what they originally were. But originally, Santana was just a kind of a jam band, very percussive, and almost progressive Latin music.
Yes.
And I love it. Oye Como Vas, is that on here?
I don't believe so.
No, it's not. It's every early Santana record is just fantastic. Got Neil Schon on here. Actually, this may be pre-Neil. No, we got Greg Rowley, who is also from Journey.
There have been the band has been almost like a revolving door of amazing artists.
Yeah, and Neil Schon, I think, joined on the second record, so he and Greg Rowley, both Journey dudes. But yeah, it's a great one. Waiting, Evil Ways.
Yeah, that's probably the standout track from the first one.
Yeah, Shades of Time, Savior, Jingo, Persuasion, Treat, You Just Don't Care, Soul Sacrifice. He's so great. I know that I think he was touring last year and had a medical issue.
medical issue. Because we really wanted to go see that, and it was postponed or canceled.
Yeah. Well, that's a good choice, man.
Yeah. And that was another one of those Sundays records I got from Sony.
Sony Columbia. It's awesome. I don't think there haven't been any other Santana records.
No.
I think I might have one Santana record.
I've got a bunch that I've picked up, and that's one thing. Santana is a good artist to pick up used because the records are typically in pretty good shape.
Not too expensive.
And they're not terribly expensive.
Yeah, that's great.
So if you're looking for stuff to find and a different sound, Santana.
Santana, man.
Yeah, and this came out in 1969.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
54 years
He's still
ago?
at it, so.
Yeah.
Go, Carlos, go.
Good for you.
You're next.
Well, we're going to stay in the S's. This is Steely Dan Greatest Hits. This came out in 1978, so this is 2 years before Gaucho. There was a little break, and they didn't put a studio album out, and so they put a Greatest Hits together. When you look at the track listing from this, it obviously doesn't have Gaucho or anything after, but the songs on this are just fantastic.
Let's hear the songs. I'm anxious to hear the songs.
So we got Do It Again, Reelin' in the Years, My Old School, which is my favorite Steely Dan song. Bodhisattva, Showbiz Kids, East St. Louis, Toodaloo, Ricky Don't Lose That Number, Pretzel Logic, Any Major Dude, Here at the Western World, Black Friday, Bad Sneakers, Dr. Wu, Haitian Divorce, Kid Charlemagne, The Fez, Peg, and Josie. So basically packed with Steely Dan hits. We were talking about half-price books the other day, and the fact that they're way overpriced. If you look at this, I got this in 2006, and it was at the time, that's a time when records were 50 cents.
Yeah.
Or a quarter, and I paid $4 for this sumbitch.
But it's in really good shape.
It's in great shape, and that's the thing. A lot of my Steely Dan stuff I got early when I jumped back into really collecting, and a lot of it has been listened to a lot. This one, the reason I spent $4 at the time, which was a lot comparatively, is because it was in such good shape. And I see this now. I think they've repopped it, and I see this out and about now. And I think they've done a new Greatest Hits that includes all of their albums.
Yeah.
So that might be a good one to get. But, yeah, I absolutely adore Steely Dan. I kind of fell in love with them in college and still love them. So
I may not hate that album.
Oh, you probably
I could listen to it.
See, Steely, there's a certain thing. Well, we can talk about it after we're recording.
I did listen to a Steely Dan podcast on my way to, not Steely Dan, a cover podcast of Steely Dan songs.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate it.
What do you mean? It's like a group that does cover?
No, it's a cover show.
Mm-hmm.
So he played all these Steely Dan covers.
Oh, okay.
I'll send you a link. But
Well, the movie Me, Myself, and Irene, like most of that soundtrack is cover songs of Steely Dan.
Oh,
So
I did not know that.
Yeah, you should check it out.
That's crazy.
I think I can't remember who all's on it. I think the Marvelous 3 is on it, which they're great. They kind of fizzled, but Butch Walker was the guy that sang and played guitar for the Marvelous 3. I love that soundtrack just because it's new takes on Steely Dan tunes. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll check that out.
Steely Dan Greatest Hits.
Nice.
Go grab it, kids.
All right. And another one that I don't think we've ever talked about. There we go.
And that's the back cover.
Oh, that is the back cover.
Yeah.
Duh. Jesus.
You have it in the bag wrong.
Yes, I do. Another reason not to love bags. Jimi Hendrix, Axis Bold of Love.
It's a great record.
Hendrix is kind of like, it's really like jazz with words.
Mm-hmm.
Because the music's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's not you're not hearing what you think you're listening to.
Right.
It's really different.
Kind of stream of consciousness.
Yeah, it really is.
It's almost like they were on some kind of substance that made them think differently.
Very true, especially this album.
Yeah.
Now the original cover with this, we can't show anywhere.
Oh, is it the one with all the women with no tops on?
All the.
Yeah.
They may even be nude. I don't know.
Let's hope.
Yeah, there's always that. So they came back with this.
It's really kind of crazy with the cobra at the top there, and then it's almost like
it's very Indian inspired.
Yeah. What all do we have on the? The songs. Yeah. The songs aren't on. The back.
No.
You know, how do you feel about that? I kind of like knowing.
I want to see the songs.
Yeah, and I know that for the sake of art, sometimes that falls by the wayside, but I kind of wish they'd put the damn songs on there, or at least put a square hype sticker on there with the songs. Huh?
Yeah, there was really only one single from this, Up From the Skies, One Rainy Wish, but
Bold as Love.
Axis Bold as Love. There's a Spanish Castle Magic was what I was trying to think of.
I love that song. That's a great one.
Bold as Love. Castles Made of Sand. Two
Okay.
Castle songs.
Okay. Spanish Castle Magic. That's up there. That and Crosstown Traffic are like my two favorite.
So there's not a bunch of well-known songs on this release, but it's. I mean, you can see I picked it up. It's still a repop that I picked up from our buddy Doug at Karma, $12.99.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's a great deal.
Yeah.
And not an original, but a good copy.
A good copy. Yes.
That hasn't been handled by cat people.
Yes.
People
which is
with
good.
claws. Yeah, that's a great call. I haven't had any Hendrix on my list. I love Hendrix, but with some of his stuff, I think it suffers sonically because the sonic quality isn't always that great from the recordings. Now, his estate has repurposed and repopped and remixed and mastered stuff, so it's a lot better. But at the time when I was growing up in the 80s, he was just kind of out of my purview. I mean, I was more Led Zeppelin.
He's not somebody that, because basically by the 70s, he was out of the picture.
Yeah. But as far as like a game-changing artist,
Oh, yeah. That's one of the reasons I wanted to put him on the Essentials, because the influence he had.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he didn't have the notoriety and fame the way that a lot of other contemporaries of his had, but we're still talking about him, 60 years later.
Yeah.
And he's just an amazing artist. I mean, he took what was there and did something with it that nobody ever had before. And in music, that's not easy to do.
No. Because, I mean, really, you expect, when you listen to a lot of rock music, you're expecting something you're going to possibly hear on a radio station. This is not like anything else.
Right. And
it's very experimental.
I don't think he gets as much credit for being as experimental with the song. I mean, obviously very experimental with the guitar playing, but the songs are just as experimental, just as on the edge as his guitar playing. The family is doing an Experience Hendrix tour every year pre-COVID. I don't know if they're still planning on getting that back up and going, but I went to that show in Nashville with Mr. Russell, and there were probably 30, I'm not kidding, there were probably 30 world-famous, world-class guitarists that were at that show. And
really?
what they all did was played Hendrix stuff. Like they kind of interpreted Hendrix stuff. So it's called Experience Hendrix. Some of the notable folks at that show were Dave Mustaine, Eric Johnson, Brad Whitford from Aerosmith showed up, like in the encore, and played 2 songs.
Really?
Yeah. So it was enough like huge rock and other guitar stars that I turned to my buddy at one point and I said, if God forbid there was an accident here, the world would lose like 30 certified
That's crazy.
guitar geniuses. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but it was so good that anytime that comes close, I'm going to go to it.
And sometimes those celebration shows are like that. You don't know what to expect, but you're really, really shocked and surprised how well they turn out.
Yeah, and that speaks to just how influential he was. Because all of these guys, whether their music has anything to do with Hendrix or not, they love Hendrix. And I think that he solidified that love of the instrument. And, the next person to come along after Hendrix, well, Jeff Beck, but he was kind of around before Hendrix.
Yeah.
The next person that came along was Eddie Van Halen. And those three guys might be the dudes when it comes to redefining what the guitar can be. So that's a great choice.
Next, what do you got?
Speaking of great guitarists.
Oh, Billy, you and your half-price books.
I know. Tell me how much. Yeah, this was 99 cents in 2007.
Damn, I wish I was buying albums then.
This is one of those records that's not terribly expensive to get.
No.
But it's still going to be $10-15. They've just I think Acoustic Sounds may have done a repop of this, or it might be Intervention Records. I can't remember, but I absolutely love Billy Squier. When I was a kid and I'd go to my aunt and uncle's house, my cousin was away at college, I'd always go into her room and play her records, and Don't Say No was one of the records, that, Back in Black, and there were a few others that she always had. And so not only that, he's just incredible. His voice is amazing, great guitarist, great songwriter. And there's a song on here that a lot of people might not know. It's called Nobody Knows, and it's his homage to John Lennon.
I have a funny story about In the Dark. When that song was out, when I was in high school, I always thought it said Kinnadad.
Okay.
Because there was somebody I went to high school with, her name was Kinnadad Fitzpatrick. And it's like, I don't know why I thought it said that, but
Kinnadad. It fits.
Yeah.
The right amount of syllables. This came out on, I think it came out on my birthday, April 13th, 1981.
Ooh.
And so Leonard had just...
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Leonard had just passed away the year before, and he was a huge fan. And so Nobody Knows, if you haven't heard that song, give it a listen. It's one of the great ones. I mean, it's basically, it's another one of those greatest hits from a...
He just got played so much when I was in high school that it wasn't somebody I went to when I was in high school, but I picked him up later on.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that album.
His first record, Tale of the Tape, I just got at the Crossroads show this last time.
Yeah.
Because that Billy Squier stuff popped up this week. So I've kind of been on a kick, and I'm like, well, Don't Say No hasn't been on my list, and it's absolutely an essential. I guess was kind of overplayed, but it's kind of gone away. You don't.
Yeah, it's not. You don't hear it much now.
Yeah, you don't hear him.
You might hear the stroke. And that's about it.
But the other interesting thing about Billy is that the reason that he can just do nothing is because he's the most sampled rock artist in hip hop.
Really?
Yeah, between his drum beats and his guitar parts and the break beats and stuff. So he's a freaking gazillionaire just from hip hop people sampling his music. So good for him. And I don't know, I might have mentioned this before, but what he does on a daily basis is he's like a landscaper at Central Park. So he just lives in New York, and he goes over there and works and, cleans the park up. Isn't that interesting?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So every time my wife and I go to New York, and we're in
You're
Central
looking.
Park, I'm like,
is that Billy?
Where's Billy at? Yeah, he was in one of the Ringo Starr All-Star bands, I think a couple years.
Oh.
And I missed that. That would have been fantastic.
Any of those I'm sorry I only saw one of those shows because it was so good.
Yeah. I mean, anytime Keith and myself and my wife saw the one at the Greek, like in 1918 or 19.
1918?
Yeah. Well, as many drinks as I had, you could have told me it was 1918 and I would have believed you. I kind of think that everything he did was essential just because I think he's only got 6 or 7 albums.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one that I love, and it's tied so closely to the beginning of my falling in love with music and tearing up my cousin's records too, as well as my parents' Beatles records, Mr. Russell. Don't Say No, Billy Squier.
That is a really good one.
Thanks,
that
man.
Needed to be on the list. This is where my essential list
gets wacky.
Not wacky, but where it's not so much me. Like, this album doesn't mean a bunch to me. It's certainly not my favorite output from this band.
Yeah.
And I probably would not readily recommend this record to people, but it is in the lexicon of 100 essential albums. It needs to be on there because it's so influential.
So you feel like it should be there?
Yes. Fleetwood Mac, Rumors.
Never heard of them.
Never heard of them. Well, let me tell you about the band. And I always wondered about the cover of this.
With his balls dangling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, why is he on the cover with Stevie?
Honestly, I don't know. But my guess is that they probably took a bunch of pictures with different personnel when they were doing the photo shoot. I don't know. Maybe there's something on Wiki about it, but I've always wondered that too. But it did turn out that he and Stevie became involved with each other. That was one of the issues.
Yeah, the whole band they were like a key swap party.
Whether or not it fits in the lock, I'm putting it in there.
Yeah. February 4th, 1977 is when this
thing has like taken on a life of its own. And
it really has.
And then with the passing of Christine last year, I think it's just picked up even more. I mean, this is one of the biggest selling records in music history. And the crazy thing is, this is like the third iteration of this band.
Yeah.
You had the Peter Green, you had the Bob Welch era, and then this, where they're bringing a couple, an artistic musical couple, into the band, into the fray. And who would have ever been like, well, any notoriety and fame you guys have is going to be multiplied by 1,000.
Well, yeah. And I mean, they were a different band before they became the popular band. So they've gone through this before. So it's maybe in their DNA.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great record. And like you said, it's not necessarily one that I'm going to listen to that often, just because almost every song on it is played.
Yeah, you're going to hear every single song.
Let me run through the songs. I think they're on the back here. Secondhand News, Dreams, Never Going Back Again, Don't Stop, Go Your Own Way, Songbird, The Chain, You Make Loving Fun, I Don't Want to Know, Oh Daddy, Gold Dust Woman. There are legitimately 7 hits on this record.
Yeah, it had 4 singles.
Yeah. And like you said, part of this list is, these are records and songs that mean a lot to us. Another aspect of it is, what do you think if someone were just coming in blindly listening to this episode and they were like, I'm starting to collect records, what should I listen to? This should probably be on it.
It's a great record to pick up because, one, there are 10 million of them out there. And you can pick it up for like $10.
Yeah.
Or under $10, $5-10 at a show, and it's not going to be a bad investment. I mean, you're not going to hate the record.
It's hard to believe because, I think we had the conversation with Rob Coyle. I think it was episode 14.
Yeah.
We were talking to him about being surprised at how affordable Beatles records are. Like, whether it's first press, second press. I mean, Beatles records were pressed to death, but it's kind of shocking. It was kind of surprising to us that Beatles records are as cheap as they are. And he said, yeah, I think they should be more expensive than they are. So that could be the same thing with them, just from the sheer amount of them that are out there.
Yeah, the first time I had this, it was a music club that I got in high school, and I traded it to somebody for the Police Ghost in the Machine.
That's a good trade.
Yeah. It's because I'm like, I really don't want this.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever... Actually, I did trade with somebody once in middle school. I got Ozzy Osbourne Ultimate Sin on cassette. I can't remember what I gave for it, but I think it was still a good trade.
It was a study hall conversation. And so it's like, oh, bring it in tomorrow and we'll trade.
You know, kids aren't doing that anymore.
No.
I mean,
they don't trade.
Well, they don't have physical albums. I mean,
some don't.
They're starting to.
Yeah, they're starting to.
Are either of your kids like, have either of them picked up on the vinyl?
No, they're more about digital.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
And they don't want as much stuff.
Yeah. Well, they're going to get a bunch of stuff from Dad one day.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing.
Unless before then.
Yeah, I sell it all.
Yeah, just take it.
Come get it.
That's a good one, man.
Yeah. Next.
My next one. I know that there was a Clash album recently. Combat Rock. This is my favorite Clash album because London Calling was before my... London Calling was 79, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is, what, 80...
82? 83?
Yeah, 82. Released 14 May 1982 on CBS Records. I love this record. I mean, it's obviously got Rock the Casbah, which is huge.
Yeah.
Should I Stay or Should I Go?
Yeah, Should I Stay? Yeah.
But my favorite Clash song is the first song on here, and it's Know Your Rights.
Know Your Rights.
This is a repop that I just got probably 2 months ago. And I just love it. I love the cover. I love the music. This is kind of right before they started falling apart.
Yeah.
And part of that falling apart was probably the fame that came with having such a huge record.
Yeah. For a band like The Clash, this became really popular. Rock the Casbah was on every, even pop station.
Pop stations, dance clubs.
Yeah.
You name it. And they were kind of pushing and pulling between being that rock band and dance band from this point forward, right?
I think it was very much, Strummer wanted to be more of a rock band, and Mick Jones wanted to be more of a dance band.
Yeah, yeah. There's not a lot we have to say about it. This pressing sounds great, and I've got the hype sticker here. So they includes Should I Stay or Should I Go? Rock the Casbah, Straight to Hell. So there you go.
Yeah.
They're the three most famous ones. But Know Your Rights. If you don't know Your Rights, go listen to it right now.
I love the little icon they've come up with for Know Your Rights.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's the handgun.
The handgun and the book open with a star behind it. Lightning bolts. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
By the way, this is in stereo.
In stereo.
Yeah. They're another one of those bands that I think was so explosive when they got that famous that, I mean, there's a lot of them, but the Police, when a band becomes that huge,
that massive,
that quickly, and it puts so much strain on everything, they're probably not going to be around a long time.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to pull through. I mean, we see more bands disintegrate and break up over that than stay together. It's probably only maybe 10% of them stay together.
Well, the biggest example, I mean, we've seen examples of that through, the 60s, 70s, 80s. But I am so thankful that didn't happen to the Beatles. Because could you imagine if the Beatles had that, they had that explosive moment coming onto the scene, and then they just kept at it. They just, every 6-8 months, they kept putting records out. And thank God for that, because they were only together for 8 years.
Yeah.
And, had they exploded 4 albums in, we wouldn't have all that great music. But I think it's both a blessing and a curse, because I think that kind of, especially for the Clash.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
I mean, there was a push and pull. A lot of people in the band wanting to drive the direction of the band, which could create great art, but it also creates a lot of friction. So, Combat Rock by The Clash, the only band that matters.
Yes, that is a great one, and that need to be on there.
Thanks.
So
I'm pretty happy with my choices so far.
This one will be the weird one, but it kicks off a theme.
Okay. Oh,
Brian Eno and David Byrne, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. I adore this album. It's probably one of my top 10 favorite albums of all time.
Brian Eno is so interesting. His music is just...
He's a different cat.
It's ethereal, kind of atmospheric. Almost... A lot of stuff almost sounds like it belongs in a score. And I know that he's done scoring.
Yeah.
So, and this one is with David Byrne, so there's twice as much weird.
Yeah, it's weird times 10. And this came out in February of 81. Nobody's going to know one song from this.
Well, that's okay.
That's quite all right.
This will be a discovery.
Yeah, I mean, all the songs are these radio samples with music. So you'll hear or even a television sample. You'll hear a televangelist going on, and they turn it into a song.
They were way ahead of their time because people are doing that on social media left and right.
It's like a lot of stuff you hear from DJs nowadays.
So the little like snippets from a movie or from a news story,
yes,
news anchor, or like a reporter from Vietnam,
right?
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to hear that. I mean,
yeah.
When that's done well, I love it.
And it has that very much that David Byrne Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club vibe with the music.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, it's...
Any standout tunes?
Well, I mean, it kicks off with America Is Waiting, and that one really, for whatever reason, just really grabs you.
Really reverberates.
Yeah.
Let me look at the musicians on here. And
yeah, you're going to probably see some people.
So we have John Cooksey on drums. We also have Chris Frantz on drums from Talking Heads. Dennis Keeley on Bodron. I don't know what the hell that is. Mingo Lewis, Battlesticks, Prairie Prince, Can bass drum, Jose Rossi, congos, congas, a gong gong.
It goes on and on.
Okay, yeah. A lot of people on here.
Here's the description from Wikipedia. The album integrates sampled vocals and found sounds, African and Middle Eastern rhythms, and electronic music techniques.
Yeah, and then under musicians, it says Brian Eno and David Byrne, guitars, basses, synthesizers, drums, percussion, and found objects.
Yeah. Which I'm sure they're banging on bottle, who knows what. They first worked together on more songs about buildings and food, the 78 Talking Heads release. And
Great record.
Yeah, then they hooked up on this.
I'll have to give it a shot.
Yeah.
I have two Brian Eno albums that I've put on when I got, just because I found them for a decent price. His stuff can be very expensive.
Yeah,
even the repop stuff.
I don't recall ever seeing much Eno at music shows.
Me neither, but the last couple that I've gone to, I've heard people asking about Eno. So there's something.
So people are saying, "Hey, do you have any Brian Eno?"
Yeah, there's something going on. But when you think about it, I mean, he's not selling millions and millions and millions of albums, so there's not going to be that inventory out there.
There's not a huge inventory, so it's probably going to be easier to find a repop than a used.
I love it, man. I'm going to have to dig into this. And
this is anybody who's into music, I would recommend this album. It's so different and weird.
Yeah. I love when I was looking at the musicians a minute ago, it says Voices, unidentified indignant radio host, San Francisco, April of 1980.
Yeah. So the song I was talking about has a sample of this evangelist performing an exorcism intended for the Jezebel spirit.
Well, I mean, that old trope.
Yes.
That's great, man.
And it's derived from a 54 novel, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. I love the title, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I like to say My Life in a Bush of Coincidence.
I love it, man. That's great.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell the cover is, but
No,
you know,
it's fun.
it's Brian Eno
It's
and David
kind of a
Byrne.
little bit like the music.
They probably don't know what it is either. This is "We've Come for You All" by Anthrax, and they just put this on vinyl recently, and I got it. Damn it! This is John Bush era Anthrax. Let me tell you a little about it. This is the 9th studio album by Anthrax, released on May 6, 2003. As far as the John Bush era, it's my favorite. First off, John Bush was the original guy that Metallica had in mind to sing.
Oh, I did not know that.
Before they chose for Hetfield to play guitar, rhythm guitar, and sing, he's who they wanted. So he's also in Armored Saint, has been an Armored Saint since it began, and he's been around forever. I just actually saw him and Armored Saint open for Wasp in Detroit
I think I remember
last year. And I love John Bush. He also did a bunch of VO stuff for Burger King like 15, 16 years ago. So originally Anthrax had, I can't remember the original singer's name. Then Joe Belladonna came in and they did like 6 records with him. And then in, I think, 93, John Bush came in and they did about 5 or 6 records with him. And
they have quite the catalog.
Yeah. And this is just, I used to listen to this all the time when I had my first iPod and I would go for runs. This is one of those records that I just constantly listen to. So it starts out with Contact, What Doesn't Die, Superhero, Refuse to Be Denied, Safe Home, which is the big song off this, if you can call it big, Any Place But Here, Nobody Knows Anything, Strap It On. Dimebag Darrell from Pantera plays on that, by the way. Black Dahlia, Cadillac Rockbox, Taking the Music Back, Crash, Think About an End, and We've Come for You All. So there's so much good Anthrax out there, and I think there's a theme here. I talk about bands being underrated all the time. I think they're one of the big 4 thrash bands, and I think they're very underrated. Any iteration of the band I think is underrated. They just don't. Metallica has absorbed so much attention in the thrash or the heavy metal arena that I think a lot of the other bands kind of get looked over. But yeah, and I love the cover too because it's each of the dudes and people are reaching for them. So yeah,
that is a cool cover.
Yeah, and this is so new. I know it's a no-no. I shouldn't be doing this, but I want to look at the. Oh, cool. I love when lyrics are included. I know that it seems like that's a popular thing at certain times, and then it's not included, and then it's included again. But I love all the artwork and the live performance photos and stuff, and they kind of have a different artwork for each of the songs.
Each song, yeah.
Yeah, which
I
is
like
very,
the jacket.
Yeah,
with all the patches. I like patches. So.
Yeah, which is very cool. But these guys are one of my favorites, and I always sing their praises because I think they're definitely underrated. There's another kind of offshoot band from Anthrax called Stormtroopers of Death. That's kind of like very much a thrash band. If you ever want to hear some of that, you should check it out. But yeah, this is one that when I saw that they were actually going to repop it.
Oh,
because it was
let's see if Jay can get it back in the bag.
It was never released on vinyl.
That's quick.
Hey man, I got some skills occasionally. Yeah, Anthrax, We've Come for You All. Go get it, kids. It'll melt your face.
That's a good one. So what I'm going to do is I'm changing up my order to kind of piggyback on yours. No, it's not an Anthrax album, but
I just got excited.
It is a Metallica. Ooh. The Black Album.
There you go. Can you see that?
It's black.
There's nothing to see.
Yeah, it's just black.
There's a logo and a snake in the corner.
Yeah, a logo and a snake. You can barely even see the snake.
Is this the new one? The new version of this?
Yeah.
Just came out?
It wasn't original.
Yeah.
Well, not the newest new one.
Okay.
It's not a deluxe. It's
okay.
just a repop.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a huge record for them because this is the one that just exploded them onto the scene.
Yeah,
But it's also
August of '91.
yeah, but it's also a very divisive record.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the next. I know a lot of Metallica people don't like this one.
Yeah.
But it's a good entry into Metallica.
Yeah.
So if you're not really, like I wasn't really into Metallica,
Mm-hmm.
but after I got this and listened to it, I wanted more.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing, because you listen to it and there are, I guess, one or two songs that are sort of more poppy. But I mean, you're talking about the preeminent thrash metal band in the world putting a record like this out and selling. I think it's sold like 20 million copies. It may be even more than that. I'm going to flip this around because they did actually make it legible to read the.
I mean, one of the biggest singles, Inner Sandman, that's not poppy at all. It gets played everywhere, but it's not poppy at all.
Right. It's more of just a hard rock song.
Yeah.
You know? And that's one that they almost have to play live every time they play a concert.
Well, I mean, it had 5 singles.
Yeah.
5 singles. That's a lot.
In the early 90s.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean.
And really, those singles are the singles that when just a casual fan thinks of Metallica, it comes from this album.
Yeah. I think Master of Puppets was on my essentials list. As far as if I could only choose one Metallica record, that would be it. This was never a huge record for me. Now, like when it came out, I remember I would get magazines like Metal Edge and Circus and stuff, and I'd follow like when releases were supposed to come out, obviously pre-internet. And this is one that when that video for Enter Sandman came on MTV, I had no idea that they had an album coming out. And I was like, who the hell is this? Because in the video,
it was so different from,
the video is very dark, kind of like the cover. So they used a lot of flash stuff. So they were in the dark and then you could see them for a brief second. I think that's a good song. I really do think that's a good song. This is just one of those records that true fans that were there from the beginning kind of have a problem with, because this introduced them to the rest of the world. And for some people, they think that when something precious to them becomes popular, that it loses its integrity somehow.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. I mean, this band has been the number one band in the world basically since this record came out.
Yeah.
And that's 33 years. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So they're obviously doing something right.
Yeah, it was, let's see. Album was certified 16 times platinum.
16 million copies.
And that's in 2012.
Yeah. Yeah. And that they've sold probably twice that many since
Yeah,
then.
it's sold over 16 million copies in the U.S. The first album in the SoundScan era to do so.
That's
I don't
amazing.
know what that means, but hey.
Well, SoundScan was the company that came on to look after record sales by UPC. So if you look at your records from the early 80s, there's no UPC code.
Okay.
SoundScan was basically like any record store any retailer that sold records would subscribe to SoundScan to be able to report their sales. And SoundScan are the ones that kind of keep track.
And this is it became the second longest charting title in history, only behind
Dark Side of the Moon.
Yep. We had to get it in.
I can't think of too many episodes where Dark Side of the Moon doesn't get mentioned.
Yeah.
But this is great. Enter Sandman, Sad But True, Holier Than Thou, The Unforgiven, Wherever I May Roam, Don't Tread on Me, Through the Never. That's a good song. Nothing Else Matters of Wolf and Man, The God That Failed, My Friend of Misery, The Struggle Within. Like I said, it's not one that I go back to that often, but there are definitely a couple songs on here that I think are really, really good. And they ventured further into the pop world after this with Load and Reload, and cut their hair and started wearing makeup, and people were all up in arms.
Yeah.
They've kind of gotten back to their roots with their last couple of records. And the first two songs from the new one are great. They sound like 80s, early 80s thrash band songs.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
So, yeah. That's a good choice.
You didn't expect that one from me.
I did not. So we talked about Boston's entire catalog, at least their first three records, all being essentials. I have always loved this record. I know Keith loves this record. The first two Boston, because they take 6 years to do a record, the first two Boston albums were so far ahead of our time, that I didn't, even though I heard them on the radio and everything, I didn't really feel that attached to them because they came out way before.
And the cover is great because we still have the iteration of the guitar spaceship. And there's some, this is Boston Third Stage, by the way, if you're playing along.
Yes, so this is the third album by Boston, released September 26, 1986 on MCA Records. Recorded at Tom Schultz's Hideaway Studio over a long 6-year period between floods and power failures in the studio in his basement.
They even say it took 6 years.
Yep. What I really love about this record is there's kind of a almost a theme, musical theme throughout. So you'll hear certain parts of the songs revisited in later songs. The big song off of this was Amanda. We're Ready, The Launch, Cool the Engines, My Destination, A New World, To Be a Man, I Think I Like It, Can't You Say, Still in Love, and Holly Ann. I just, the first time I heard any of this, I was in love with it, and I always have been. When you go back and listen to it, it really needs to be remastered or something. I mean, all of those synthesizer type sounds are created by Tom Schultz and his guitar and whatever piece of electronic equipment he invented. But this still sounds amazing to me. And, it's a pretty heavy album too, very emotional, kind of a lot of love and loss type stuff. And when I hear Brad Delp sing that stuff, it almost breaks my heart because he's not around anymore.
Yeah.
And he was just, there's never been a guy with a voice like that.
No.
And never
How many
will be.
records did Boston put out?
This was the third. There was a fourth one. I think the fourth one's called Walk On. And I think they've done a couple more since then. They did a thing, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, kind of like Journey with Arnell. They found a guy on YouTube, and he kind of sounded like Brad, so they were touring with him. And then at one point, Michael Sweet from Stryper was touring with him too.
Huh.
So that guy that they had found and Michael Sweet were sharing vocal duties. So that's kind of a neat little story. I don't know how many studio albums they've done.
Yeah, but these first three are the ones that everybody knows.
Absolutely. And like I said, I think there's not a wasted song on any of them.
Yeah, and these are more. You can pick up the first three albums, for probably $20. I mean, you can get each one under $10 easily.
Yeah.
So if you have $30, get the first three Boston albums.
Yeah.
And you'll have money left over for a burger.
And the other thing is you can find them at shows. You can find them at shows, record stores. I mean, that is what tells you how important these records are because they're always in stock somewhere, either used or new. And, that I think we've made mention of that Vinyl Guide interview with Tom Schultz.
Oh,
it's
phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a two episode interview where he talks about everything that went into making it.
He's so open about every little detail, which to me, you don't usually hear artists that are that open.
You don't, but the other thing about him is he never does interviews. So,
but he really enjoyed that one.
Yeah,
you can tell.
It's a great one. I've said that I'm going to post it on our social media before, and I haven't. I will. It's just great. And I love the artwork on this. There's the guitar. I think the guitar is off in the background there, and it's taking off from the bigger spaceship. It's just a very sentimental album for me, and absolutely had to be on the list. What's next on your
next? Well, we're gonna go back to the 80s.
We're getting down to the nitty gritty here.
Back to the 80s. Oh, I keep.
John's having trouble with front and back.
Echo and the Bunnymen, Ocean Rain, and this one came out in '84. And Echo, they always had these atmospheres with the band doing something in the atmosphere. And they were always very peculiar atmospheres. Like one was a snow-covered rock.
Yeah.
And the band's just standing out there.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So they're in some sort of cavern in a
underground cave.
Yeah, underground cave in a boat. And the standout song on this, which everybody will know, is "The Killing Moon."
Mm.
And they've often said this is the greatest song ever written.
Again, these guys were kind of ahead of my time, so I never really dug in. But I know that you've always been a fan.
Yeah. And I think I saw them on this tour in Chicago, which...
What year would that have been?
It may have been for this tour, so it would have been '84.
Wow. Long time ago, dude.
Yeah.
That's 39 years ago. I just did the math.
No, you're
right
good.
Up here. So is that the biggest song? Were there singles from this?
Let's see. I mean, "Killing Moon" by far is the biggest song. There were 3 singles: "Killing Moon," "Silver," and "Seven Seas." The "Killing Moon" got really big in the movie Donnie Darko.
Never seen it.
Yeah. There are a couple. It's popped up in some other films, but that kind of took increased interest in the band because
kind of the way that Kate Bush and Stranger Things happened.
Yes, and I think Echo has appeared maybe even in some other Stranger Thing episodes because
really?
they were one of those band. They weren't a big band in the '80s, but they were big on the underground scene.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hear about them all the time.
Yeah.
It's just that you don't hear their music that often. It's not like their music's played on FM radio or anything.
It's an interesting album because they used a 35-piece orchestra in some of the sessions. And I mean, it does have this very
grandiose
sound.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like your typical new wave synthesizer underground music. It has a very big sound.
I'll have to give it a listen, man. See, that's the cool thing. I mean, we seldom talk about the same artists and albums, and you bring something up, it makes me kind of open that door a little wider.
Yeah, it does that to me too. I mean, I don't think I would have listened to Metallica if it hadn't been for you.
Well, you're welcome. That's cool. I like it. Sire Records, which I think is a division of Warner. Is that right?
Yeah, they were, probably now.
Yep. Marketed by Warner Brothers Incorporated. Very cool, man.
Yeah, that's one of my keepers forever.
That's not one you're putting on the list because you think it needs to be on the list. That's one that you're putting on the list because you love it.
Because I love it.
That's what this is all about.
Yeah, and The Killing Moon is probably, again, it falls into that top 10 songs.
Awesome, man. I will give it a listen. I'm going on vacation after this, so I'll have some time.
You'll have time on the road.
I don't know what number we're on. I want to say it's 9. This is White Lion, Pride. These dudes are huge. They kind of like exploded on the scene in 1985, 86 from New Jersey. Vito Bratta was the guitarist. Mike Tramp, I know he's not from the U.S. They just exploded onto the scene with the first single from this called Wait. And I was absolutely on board. I mean, Vito was everybody's next Eddie Van Halen.
Oh, okay.
I mean, his rhythm playing, his lead playing, the melodies of these songs, they were kind of pop, but hard rock pop. And, you know, that hadn't really been happening at this point in the 80s. And this is actually their second record, but it was just huge. This was released on June 21, 1987 on Atlantic. Had 2 top 10 hits, Wait and When the Children Cry. It peaked at number 11 on the Billboard 200 and remained in the Billboard Top 200 for a full year, selling 2 million copies in the U.S. alone. The album has been praised for its unique and perfect guitar tone. And that's basically it. Something two or so weeks ago, I had started going back to I'd started going back to the gym about a month and a half ago. I haven't been able to run for a while. And something came up where they mentioned this record. So I was like, oh, I got to give that a listen. And I almost every time I run now, I'll listen to 1 or 2 of the songs from this. And it just takes me right back to 1987. I was 13 at the time. So this is at the time where I'm really digging into Led Zeppelin. I've dug into Van Halen for about 4 or 5 years. And then this guy comes along and people are saying he's the next Eddie Van Halen. And of course I'm on board.
Yeah, you're on board with that.
The thing about it is they did 2 more records. They did a record called Big Game, which had their version of Radar Love, which is a fantastic take on that, and had another song called Little Fighter. And there may have been one more single. Then they had another record called Main Attraction, and then they broke up.
So they didn't have a huge output.
No. And Vito has disappeared from the music industry. Nobody's heard. I mean, he's done an interview here and there, but basically he was taking care of his father. His father fell in health, and Vito just took care of his dad. I think his dad passed away, and now he's taking care of his mother, but he still lives in New Jersey.
Huh.
Yeah. There's so much of a desire for these guys to get back together, you know, and if they did, like their bassist, James Lomenzo, and he is in Megadeth now. He played with Zakk Wylde, and he's played with a bunch of different guys. Greg D'Angelo was the drummer. I don't know what he's doing. But if these are one of those bands that if they could get it back together, they could just blow up. But Vito wants nothing to do with it.
He's done.
Yeah, he's done. But I absolutely love this record. My first band that I was in with Bill and Dolph and a dude named Kurt Mann, we played Wait. And Dolph played the solo, the finger tapping solo, and he was 14 years old. So we played the song. It was huge at the time, and I still love it. So White Lion Pride. If you haven't listened, I suggest you do so.
I've got to explore some White Lion. I don't know much about them because that was definitely not in my wheelhouse.
I listen to it and I hear the little guitar stuff that he does, and I'm just blown away. I mean, and everybody was like, how the hell is this guy playing like this? I think the next one is, is this your last one?
No. This is number 9.
Number 9?
Yeah.
You're supposed to keep saying number 9.
Number 9. The Jam, All Mod Cons. And I love The Jam.
I know you do. You mention them a lot.
They're just one of those. They're one of those bands that there was a group of bands that broke kind of that punk mod scene in the 70s in England that just had a huge influence. And I love the music.
That's awesome.
I mean, they were mods.
Mm-hmm.
They were mods to a T. I mean, not as much on this album, but as some of the others. But they were mods.
The mods are the preppies.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. What's the big? Is there a big single off this?
Probably for me, either Mr. Clean or David Watts is probably the song that gets the most play. Let's see what the singles were released.
I love on the back.
Yeah, David Watts was the big single.
What was?
David Watts.
David Watts was a big single. Okay. I love on the back you've got a Rickenbacker, you've got a bass, you've got a snare drum, and a cassette player radio there in the same room that they were in on the cover.
Yeah, because they were a 3-piece.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my favorite records are either multi-piece, several members, or trios.
There's something great about a trio,
yeah,
a power trio. I mean, one of my favorite bands is Rush. To me, that's the ultimate power trio. But you've got Triumph, you've got a guy singing and playing guitar, a guy playing bass and drums.
Yeah.
I mean, does it have to be any more complicated than that?
Let's just do 3 guys.
No, it doesn't. I have never listened to the Jam either. I've got to listen to Echo and the Bunnymen and the Jam now.
Yeah, they're very, they're similar.
Is it kind of like post-punk?
Oh, yeah, it's post-punk for sure.
Type.
These guys, this album came out in November of 78, and let's see, this tour was not well received. Let's see what else we can find out about this. And like many bands from London at this time, a lot of these songs were political or had political over or undertones.
Oh, okay.
There was a lot going on. Like David Watts is a song. I think he is a English politician. Ahmad Khan's placed number 50 in a list of 100 greatest British albums of all time. Q, some magazine.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I mean, that's pretty high praise.
Yeah, and it did make the infamous 500 list.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Like the most recent one?
No, not the most recent one.
Okay. Yeah, we were talking earlier, those lists are kind of like organic, the Rolling Stone lists. They update them, and I guess from a generational standpoint that makes sense, because what society may have looked at as a great record 20 years ago certainly might be something different today. People take it so personally, these lists.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they do so well on the show. It's because, everybody loves listing stuff off. Everybody likes reading what other people's lists are, but it seems like a lot of people don't like making lists themselves.
Yeah.
Like they want to argue with yours, but they don't want to step out and make their own.
Because it does. Well, we know from doing these, it fences you in a corner.
It does.
So now you've got to defend your list.
Right. Well,
but that's okay.
We've approached it from multiple angles. Anybody that's got a decent amount of records, I defy you to go grab 100 of your favorites. I mean, it's going to take a while. And I think it's good that it's basically taken us a year to do this, and we spaced it out.
Yeah.
Because it is so much effort, And here we are. We've got, this is your number 9.
I believe so.
We're getting ready to do my number 9. So I've got 2 more, and you've got 1 more, and it's done.
It's done.
Lights off, mics down.
Drop the mic. Do we drop the mics?
I'm not going to drop a mic because they're kind of expensive. Unfortunately, the only version of my next one that I have is a picture disc. So obviously I haven't listened to it, but it's Raising Hell by Run DMC. And this is the 30th anniversary edition of this. This is the record that revived Aerosmith's career with Walk This Way.
Oh, yeah.
And this kind of solidified Run DMC as not just a rap or a hip-hop act, but a pop act. And it was huge at the time. I had a friend in high school that always introduced me to the new rap and hip-hop stuff. So these guys weren't the originators, but from the broader view, these guys were really the first rap group to have success on the charts. And hold a very special place in my heart for them. I saw them. They opened for Aerosmith. Gosh, I don't
Really?
know,
I didn't know that.
like 20 years, maybe 20 years ago or so. I can't remember if Keith came to that show. Keith was at that show with me. So the show was supposed to start at 7:30, and it said 7:30 on the tickets. And so we got there to watch the show that started at 7:30 because Run DMC was opening, and I wanted to see them. They started the fucking show at 7. So we literally got to see like the last song and a half. And this is right before Jam Master Jay was killed. So
well, you got to see some.
I cannot impart to you how pissed I was that they did that.
And the lesson learned, go to shows early.
Well, I mean, yeah. But when the ticket says 7:30
Yeah.
and that they were going to start at 7:30 and they did it a half an hour earlier, I think that's bullshit. That's kind of like a circular hype sticker.
Triangles are okay.
Anyway, we have Peter Piper on side A. It's Tricky. My Adidas, Walk This Way. Is It Live? Perfection. Hit It Run, Raising Hell. You Be Illin, Dumb Girl, Son of Byford, and Proud to Be Black. I love the anniversary hype sticker with the
That's nice.
Raising Hell logo. Yeah, I need to get an actual copy of this that I can listen to. You know what? We were talking about getting like someone in here to talk about equipment and stuff. I'd love to talk to somebody about what records are made of and what makes for good ingredients for pressing and what makes for bad ones. Why the Dynaflex records are so looked down upon. I'd love to talk to somebody about that too. So, but yeah, I love this record. Really everything. I've got everything that they did on CD. But it's just not one that I think to look for when I'm at shows.
True. So. I think you'd be hard-pressed. I have this record, too, and I love it.
Yeah.
But you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who hasn't heard one song from this record.
Right.
They may not know it's from this record, but I think almost everybody in the world, well, not in the world, but everybody who listens to music has heard one song from this record.
Absolutely. Tougher Than Leather is a great record too, and that probably would have made my list instead of this one, but I don't have it either on vinyl.
I think this is a great one for the list.
Yeah.
This is perfect.
Yep. What's your 9th record?
Actually, my 8th. I recalculated. We each should have 2 more.
No shit.
Yes.
Okay. Go for it.
Did you recount?
No, but I'm
okay.
I'm just, if I end up doing 101, who gives a shit?
That's all right. Sushi and the Banshees, Hyena. And a lot of people are going to probably say, well, Juju should be the one on there. I like Juju, but this one came out when I think Hyena came out when I was in college in '84. And it was, they're kind of, if you're putting pigeonholing a band, they're kind of that ethereal, almost gothic undertone. And I think this was the first one that Robert Smith from The Cure was on. I
was just getting ready to ask you that.
Yeah. I think this was his first album appearance.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Is their sound kind of derivative from Susie and the Banshees?
The Cure?
The Cure.
No, they're 2 totally different sounds. They're kind of in the same genre. Mm-hmm. Like if you have a metal genre, I'd say they're in the same genre, but I think their sounds are totally different. You can hear Smith's guitar work, but there's so much other stuff going on with Sushi records.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of, they're a lot like Echo. They'll bring in all these different sounds. It's like, where does that come from? It's not just, I mean, a lot of 80s bands were big on drum machines and synthesizers. So you get all these different organic or non-organic sounds happening. It's like, where's that coming from?
Yeah. See, they're another one that I was around before I kind of came of age to dig into music, for sure. But I think I look at growing up at that time and look at what we have available to us now, and it's crazy because what would keep me from buying a record like this is the fact that I haven't heard it. I don't know much about it. And now the internet, you can do all the research about the band and listen to almost everything they've ever recorded, and then you can make your decision. So.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to see them. They were part of the first Lollapalooza in Chicago. We went up to see it in 89, 88, something
no
like
kidding.
that. And when they did, they have a song, Dazzle. And when they did that song, and Sparkle and Fade, which is not on this, but I don't think Sparkle and Fade's on this. No. Dazzle. And so when it happened, everybody was throwing cups, and it was like raining. It was like a music video for the song.
Full cups?
Yeah. No. Smash cups.
Oh, okay.
And they just throw them like Frisbees in the air, and everybody's just throwing them.
That's cool. I love the artwork on that. Have you talked about this record before? Because it looks familiar.
I may have.
Okay.
It's very much like a modern painting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very cool. I look at it, and if it didn't say Susie and the Banshees and Hyena, I would think it's a Miles Davis record with the art on it.
Yeah, it kind of has that feel.
Yeah, it's very cool. What Wonderland Records, which looks like it's a division of Geffen. Is this an original?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's great. It's so cool that you have all these records from back then, and then you dug into CDs and kept them all.
Yeah, it was one of those things when they were stored and I wasn't really listening. I had them packed really tight in boxes. So they were just sitting there closed up, packed away, waiting for their unveiling.
Like a basement? Or?
They were in basements. Well, for a while, we had a big bookshelf in a house in Broad Ripple. I had them on the bookshelf. But then when we were in a house in Meridian Kessler, we had more bookshelves. But then when we moved, we didn't have bookshelves. So I'm like, I got to pack these away. I wasn't listening to them. So they were just kind of, wall art.
And now they are again.
Yes.
Now you look and listen to them.
Yes, which is awesome.
Yeah. That's part of
They're back to the way they should be.
Part of the reason I love doing it.
They're much happier, they told me.
Oh, yeah. Well, they have to speak to you.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're telling me to go buy more.
The voices.
Very cool.
Yeah, everybody talks about Smith's guitar work and his presence on this, and it's definitely something to consider. But
awesome.
In my mind, I don't really think this sounds like a Cure record.
Okay.
It just sounds. I think Robert Smith's just a very talented musician who...
I think he's underrated for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people simplify the Cure. I'm not a huge Cure fan, but people are passionate about that band.
Oh, yeah.
And I think people oversimplify their place. They just made it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so somebody thinks something of them. So
they're a little bit like Metallica on that journey, where they had all these underground records and then they kind of got big and everybody's like,
Yeah. It's so funny. I mean, you see these bands when they first start out, they're not terribly popular and you want the best for them. So you root them on, you buy their albums, you go to their shows. And then, everybody does that. And then when they become famous, people just kind of like get pissed off. It's just, it's a very interesting.
It's strange.
Dynamic. Okay, my next one, I brought two different versions of it, but basically, this is not an original press, but this is the best of Sam and Dave, and Sam and Dave are, without a doubt, probably a top 5 artists for me in any genre. I love soul music, but I love the way that their voices kind of blend together.
Yes.
And that team call and response, and that singing team I really love. And when I first saw Blues Brothers, which I think was 1982, in the Bluesmobile, there's an 8-track. We've talked about 8 tracks.
Your favorite?
Never again. But when they're getting ready, when they're on their way and they're driving right before they go to the mall and drive through the mall, they're listening to a song called "Soothe Me," and it's the best of Sam and Dave. That's the 8-track in there. And I heard that song, and I'm like, damn, I really, well, I was pretty young, but that song has stuck with me since then. And that's what kind of got me into Sam and Dave, which is the beautiful thing about the Blues Brothers, because if you really dig into the history of that band, the guys in that band are historic blues guys. Donald Duck Dunn, Steve Cropper, all the horn guys. They really put a superstar band together.
They were not just a joke band. It was a good band.
Yeah. And just really kind of amazing that it was, I don't think it was taken seriously at first, but then people really began to take it seriously. Anyway, Sam and Dave have always been one of my favorites. This is Atlantic Records. I love this old cover, just the colors and everything on it. And then the outside of the cover has all the songs on it. But this, literally every big hit from them: Hold On, I'm Coming, When Something Is Wrong With My Baby, You Don't Know Like I Know, May I Baby, Soul Man, Soothe Me, I Thank You, I Take What I Want, Wrap It Up, which was redone
by the Fabulous Thunderbirds.
By the Thunderbirds. You Don't Know What You Mean to Me, Small Portion of Your Love, You Got Me Humming, Can't You Find Another Way, and Said I Wasn't Going to Tell Nobody. And this...
Is that the same...
No, this is
a different version?
It's got some different songs on it.
Oh.
Yeah. But there's a couple on here. Soul Sister Brown Sugar's on here. It's not on the other one. But I just love these guys. I always have. I know I talk about soul music and stuff a lot. But, as I was kind of going through in my head between last night and this morning about, what needed to be on there for me, and I realized that I had no Sam and Dave. I had Sam Cooke, who's another one.
Yeah.
But these guys are absolutely at the top of the heap for me. So if you haven't dug into Sam and Dave, go listen, because not only are you going to hear some great songs, you're going to hear some of the best musicians in the world ever playing on those songs.
Yeah.
So what's your final? Your final essential album.
When you make it like that, maybe I'm the final essential.
Maybe we do 110.
The Cure.
Speaking of which.
Yeah. See what I did there?
Yeah. You really put some thought into this. Good for you.
Kind of, sort of.
I love this album cover.
Disintegration, yeah.
It's very cool.
And this came out, let's see when this came. This came out in 89, so, shortly after his time with Sushi, or I guess 5 years after.
Yeah. Really, this is like 5 years into the Cure's.
Yeah, because this is their, which release is it? It came out in May, and he was nearing, let's see, the record marks return. It returns their introspective Gothic style that they had more in the early 80s. And I guess as Smith neared the age of 30, he felt increased pressure to follow up the band's pop success with more enduring work. There were 4 singles: Lullaby, Fascination Street, which to me, that's one that I think of. Pictures of You, which is another one that you may have heard. Love Song.
Mm-hmm.
Any one of those 4.
This is a repop too, right?
Yes. I did not, because I liked the original Gothic style.
Yeah.
So when the Cure era, when Singles on the Beach came out, that was kind of the time when I'm like, I'm not as crazy about the band.
Mm-hmm.
The later stuff is the earlier stuff.
Gotcha. Huh. Well, that's cool. What's the gatefold have in here for us? If
I don't
we
know. I don't
Flip
even
it
know.
open.
It's just the band.
Oh, kind of like a pixelated
Yeah. Here's everybody.
shot of the band, and there's Robert with his very interesting makeup and hair. Yeah, man, these guys are so huge. They're just such a big band, especially in Great Britain. But
Yeah.
here, you know, that late 80s to early 90s era of the band was just huge in the US too. So
Like in '87, their "Kiss Me, Kiss Me" album, which was
exploded.
a double LP,
Yeah.
it exploded.
I love when they do that, when they have albums where they literally packed as much as they could onto each side, when they expand it to 2 records or maybe 3 sides, and then,
Yeah.
and then there's like an embossed side or something. I really like that because obviously the closer you get to the inside label, the lower the sonic quality.
Yeah.
So very cool, man. Well, it's awesome that your last record is one that, you know, really means that much to you.
Yeah. I had to bookend it.
You had to.
So what's your last?
So my last one is a recent acquisition, and I think I've talked about it before. It's Hank Mobley, Curtain Call. This is a Tone Poet release from Blue Note that just came out, I think, early last year. It's an album by saxophonist Hank Mobley, released on the Japanese Blue Note label in '84. It was recorded August 18, 1957, and features Mobley, Kenny Durham, Jimmy Rouser, pianist Sonny Clark, and drummer Art Taylor. This is just one of those records, man. I talk about it all the time. Jazz, for a lot of people, is off-putting just because it's a different mode of thinking. It doesn't really have that chorus or melody that you can grab onto like pop music does. But if you're somewhere and you hear like jazz or some offshoot of jazz and you're like, oh, this is pretty good. That's the type of music this is. I mean, he was not necessarily the mind-blowing saxophonist like Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, but just such a great melodic sax player. And when I saw that they were re-releasing this, usually Blue Note at the beginning of each year will lay out what they're going to release under their Tone Poet series and under their, I think there's another one called Acoustic Sounds. The Tone Poet releases are just such nicely curated, put together pieces, and 180 gram vinyl, and the sound quality is just usually out of this world. And so when I saw that this was coming out, I knew I had to get it, and I bought it last year. And man, it's just another one that I can throw on and sit in my front room and feel like they're playing 10 feet away from me. And the other great thing is, you know, that jazz packaging.
I love jazz packaging.
Yeah, where they've got the really cool like cover photos and then the biographical stuff on here. So we've got Don't Get Too Hip, Curtain Call, Deep in a Dream, The Mobe, My Reverie, and On the Bright Side. And it's absolutely fantastic. So if anybody's wanting to dip their toe into jazz and not get too far off on the, there are some weird roads you can go down. I definitely highly recommend it. I love the cover photo.
Oh yeah, I love the cover.
It's just awesome. And Hank Mobley featuring Kenny Dorham and Sonny Clark. See, Sonny Clark's on here. If you're interested in newer releases from jazz, just check out Blue Note, because Don Was is at the helm, and they're really doing historical preservation type stuff and really re-releasing these records the right way. But keep an eye out for old Blue Note releases too, because they did it the right way a long time ago.
Yeah.
I didn't go through my list and do an inventory of how many of like pop and rock and jazz, and you know, I know that there's not a lot of country on my list, which
and my list is thin on that area too.
Yeah, I mean, country was a huge thing in my life when I was about 6 7 years old because I played banjo and really dug into like Hank Williams Jr. and Alabama and all of that was basically the time when country was exploding back onto the scene. So maybe in a year or two when we update the list, there'll be more country records on there. But most of the time grabbing these records, I just had to go with my gut.
Yeah.
And
that's to me, I think that's one of the fun things about the list, but also, one of the things that caused me some anxiety toward the end was we're just going with our gut to pick out what we want to put on there.
Right. And what you think maybe should be put on there. Since we've done this over a year, obviously there's going to be a different approach. There are going to be different approaches in grabbing those records and putting them on the list. But the biggest thing for me is that we did it. First of all, it was an idea that I don't even know where the hell it came from. I think we just kind of came to the idea together.
Yeah, let's do an essential list.
Yeah,
and it's been very successful.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll compile all of our lists and we'll post it, and you can kind of take a look. If you're just starting to dabble in vinyl, turn around and run the other way.
Buy CDs.
But if you don't, turn around and run the other way. Take a look at the list, because I have been told by a few people that they really appreciate just seeing what is that important to someone to put on a list like this.
Yeah.
And basically, a lot of times with jazz, since there's such a huge universe of jazz music out there, I'll look at lists too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're just throwing out suggestions.
Yeah. And but the other great thing about doing this is kind of going, I mean, even when I look at the fifth group of records, I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting. It's just kind of a little historical statement when you choose a finite number of anything and put them on a list that's important to you. It's been a lot of fun. And these have been the most popular podcast episodes that we've done too. It's just I feel very accomplished right now.
Yeah, it's done.
It's done. It's over with. Nice job. But what we'd love you guys to do is share your lists with us, and it doesn't have to be 100.
It can be 10.
Yeah, it can be 10, any number of them, and a few of you guys have. But we are making strides to be better about posting and kind of communicating with everybody out there. We just want to thank everybody for coming along, because this has been stretched out over a season.
Yeah.
And we're in our 4th season now, by the way. I don't know, when we released the 1973 episode the other day, I was like, oh, 4 seasons. That's
4 seasons.
That's pretty crazy. But yeah, join in the conversation with us on the social media. Let us know what lists you want to share with us, and give us some ideas for shows, because the essential shows, guess what, folks? They're done.
They're done. Wrap them up.
Wrap it up, put it in the time capsule, and move on to another theme. That's what we're going to do. And we thank all you guys for coming along with us. Want to thank Jacob Hansen and Keith Toombs for helping us with the video content. We're going to get better about putting that up on YouTube. And we're going to also do some more video content, some shorter video content, if you don't want to watch us talk and jack around for an hour and 30 minutes. So thanks everybody for coming along, being part of the Vinyl Ventures group. And, it's interesting that the way that this whole thing started for Wheels and I, and kind of brought us together and cemented our friendship with each other. But the group of people that we've come to know and spend time with has just been awesome. And I'm really glad for something like this in my life at this point. I don't have kids, and your kids are older, so you guys are empty nesters.
Yeah.
So, there are much more economic and sensible things that we could be doing with our time and money, but I don't care about economy and cents, because I love doing this as much as I do. And I thank Wheels for being a part of it. Like I said, thanks to Keith and Jacob for helping us out, and everybody else that pitches in and we've run across at the shows and the stores over the last 8 years. It's really been a pleasure, and we just want to thank all of you guys for coming along with us. So for Wheels, I'm Jay, and we'll catch you all the next time around.
It's a final adventure, such a